Hi friends, my name is Chris, this is Modern Wisdom, and it's finally that time. Today, you're going to learn everything there is to know about the application process and my best advice for getting on the UK's biggest reality TV show, Love Island. If you are new here, press the subscribe button, and once this video is finished, go and watch what it's really like living on Love Island to find out all the secrets from behind the scenes. To give you some perspective, Oxford and Cambridge get 36,000 applications every year. In 2018, Love Island received 80,000. Although there aren't any cheat codes to beat the application process, there are some best practices which you can follow. I was the first person through the Love Island Villa doors on season 1, and I probably didn't have any right to be there. But with a bit of clever presentation and understanding of what the producers wanted, I managed to get myself on Love Island and Take Me Out within the space of 2 years. I'm not guaranteeing you'll get on the show with this advice, and I'm not claiming that getting on Love Island is something everyone should aspire to achieve. And I'm not saying that manipulating the application process is the most virtuous way to get on the show. Obviously, the whole point of the casting process is so that the producers find people who are naturally appropriate characters. That being said, with a little bit of clever strategy and a good understanding of the process, you can put yourself across in the best possible light to the execs. However, if this does lead to you getting on the show, please feel free to credit me with your success and pay me a 10% cut of any money or nudes which you receive for the rest of time. Some initial warnings. Number 1, ITV are looking for people aged 18 plus. So if you are 12 with dreams of being on reality TV, then that's great. But the show is actually aired after your bedtime, so just leave it for a few years. Number 2, do not post online about applying. Tweeting "just applied to be on Love Island, lol" is a one-way ticket to ITV saying no to you. The whole concept of the show is that the press and the cast members do not know who is going on before the show starts. So posting about it is just highlighting the fact that you're a cretin who can't keep their mouth shut. Number 3, if you've got a girlfriend or a boyfriend and your plan is to dump them a week before you go on, the UK press will find out and make you look like a massive Being honest, if you're even planning on applying to a dating show while you're in a relationship, it's probably a warning sign. So maybe Love Island is perfect for you and you should just dump them now. And finally, number 4, if you have shitloads of nudes or a sex tape floating around in a group chat, the chance of these being leaked is almost 100%, which is totally fine if you don't mind your mum seeing. But if your head game is weak, it might be worth reconsidering. The application process is split down into 3 main sections. The initial application form, the first screen test with an assistant producer or a casting producer, and the second screen test in London in front of the exec producers. There may be telephone interviews and other elements between all this, but the strategy remains the same. As a general rule of thumb, you want to be as truthful as possible. If you create a persona during your application which you can't live up to on the show, you're going to get found out very quickly. Feel free to gloss over areas of your life which you'd rather not mention, but don't make stuff up. Lies of omission are easier to stick to than lies of commission. We'll get into strategies for each stage in a second, but throughout each step, you need to be thinking about what the producers want from a character. They obviously want someone who's going to get involved and create storylines. This is referred to as creating content. The more content you are likely to produce on the show, the bigger your contribution and the more likely they are to choose you. This doesn't mean being the loudest person in the room. It's Love Island, not X on the beach, but you do need to show the producers that you'll get involved. First tip. Getting noticed. You can be as good of a potential character as you want, but if no one knows you exist, you're stood outside in the cold, on your own, waving your dick around, hoping that someone's going to see you. It's going to be easier to get on reality TV if you're highly visible online. Having a couple of thousand followers on Instagram is a good place to start for a number of reasons. Firstly, lots of casting companies scour social media for potential applicants, and the more well exposed you are online, the better this chance will be. Secondly, like it or not, your following on social media is interpreted as a ubiquitous, internationally recognized form of social currency. It's not an indicator of value, but it is a representation of your popularity, so more is never going to be a bad thing. First impressions matter, so a well-curated social media feed is important. And ITV2 will check. Those 50 dog photos or the video of you pushing a mate down the street in a shopping trolley might be funny to you, but the executives at ITV probably don't really care. Really basic stuff here will make a massive difference. Keep your photos well lit, don't upload ones of you looking battered at your grand's 80th, and avoid getting your dick out. Tip number 2. The ideal scenario is for the casting researchers to come to you via your DMs, or if you've you've got a friend who works at ITV or once was on the show, they may be able to put you in touch with someone. But if you don't, open applications have started now through ITV's website, and the link is in the description below. The first stage of the process is the initial application form. This is here to give ITV a first impression of you and your background. They'll use it to work out if you're in the right age bracket, if you're single, whether you have a criminal record, and if you can spell your name. The studio needs to filter out people who don't meet the criteria that they cannot compromise on. I'd actually guess that more people who apply probably aren't valid applicants than ones who are. As I mentioned, you need to be over 18 to be accepted. Also, based on the show's history, it's unlikely that ITV2 will cast anyone over the age of 32, so bear that in mind. First up, and most importantly, you will be asked to upload a 1-minute video telling ITV why you think you would be a great Islander. This is new to me, as I got fast-tracked through the first stage when I applied, but the process for creating a good VT here is the same as for the later screen tests, so now is a good time to get started. The biggest bit of advice I can give, and this applies to all the screen tests actually, is that your goal should be to reduce the distance that the producers need to jump in their minds to get from the person who they see in front of them and the cast member that they want on the show. This means if you start with the processes which the show use in mind, you'll seem much more like a ready-made cast member. For instance, avoid wearing big branding on your outfit, as big branding isn't allowed on the show. Don't swear too much, as big batches of swearing don't tend to get aired. And look straight down the lens of the camera, just like they do in the Villa's interview room, etc, etc, etc. If you're actually a fan of the show, or if you've watched it before, this should be pretty easy. Some tips to make a good VT. Number 1. Most importantly, ITV will not accept videos with a filter on, so don't upload one of you with an angel halo or dog ears or a fucking rocket coming out of your arse. You're just going to waste their time. Number 2, film it somewhere quiet and well lit, ideally with you facing a big window for as much natural light on your face as you can. Number 3, using the front-facing camera on your phone is more than sufficient if it's in HD. The studio are concerned with your content here. They're not expecting George fucking Lucas. Number 4, dress and style yourself naturally. Think of going out for a nice lunch date with a friend. This should be a polished, typical representation of you as a person. So if you never wear jewelry but appear on your tape adorned like Ali G, it's not going to work. Getting onto the content of the tape, I would always open your tape with your name, your age, what you do, and your location. This is the staple VT intro, and it's also going to be the first words that come out of your mouth on the show's VT as well. Next up, just get straight into the meat of it. I would make a great Islander because this is the question that ITV are asking you, so prepare it. Think about your qualities as a person, what you'd bring to the villa, your relationship aims, perhaps mention your relationship history. A couple of quick funny stories would be great, but you've got 1 minute, so keep it short. In terms of editing, iMovie on your phone can stitch multiple scenes together. So I'd nail the intro as one scene and then have multiple cracks at the personal explanation until you're really happy with it. Finally, and maybe most importantly, express yourself naturally by moving, smiling, laughing down the camera. Talking down the pipe, as it's called, is super difficult, and it can lead to people looking really stiff and uncomfortable. Express things with your hands, laugh when you tell a funny story, smile lots, and focus your eyes on the camera. These will make you seem more outgoing, personable, and confident. Again, just imagine that you're talking to a friend, and then turn your energy and your animation up by about 20%. Moving through the rest of the application form, you'll be asked to upload a headshot photo, a full-length photo, and you can upload 3 optional photos as well. The questions for the main section of the application form are here. Fairly straightforward stuff. Are you single? How long was your last relationship? Etc, etc. There's no cheat codes or secret answers here. Just aim to be brief, truthful, and charming as best you can over the internet. 200 words per answer is probably fine. The casting producers are reading a lot of these applications, so if you can keep your answers short, sweet, and interesting, then you'll make their lives an awful lot easier. Remember what you said on your VT and use that as inspiration in your application. Finally, there are some more legal questions at the end. I'd advise not lying on these. As you can see, the studio are asking about whether you've got any skeletons in your closet, even at this stage, so think carefully about applying. The only thing worse than getting through to the final stages of the application process and the studio finding out is getting onto the show and then the press finding out. The next stage of the application process is the initial screen test. If you've made it this far, you're probably in the top 1 or 2% of all applicants, so it seems realistic that you might actually have a genuine shot. There will be multiple locations and dates across the country. This will probably be in March or April time. The screen tests will happen in a hotel meeting room somewhere. When you arrive, you'll get placed into a waiting room with other applicants to fill out a form, and then you wait for your turn to go into a separate room and go on camera. As I mentioned before, your goal should be to reduce the distance that the producers need to jump in their minds to envision you being on the show. On top of that, you need to be able to respond to questions on the fly, and now you have to get used to putting the interviewer's question in your answer. This is a odd quirk of reality TV, and it's a big departure from how you'll normally speak. So the interviewer will ask you a question like, what sort of girls do you go for? But the interviewer's voice is never heard on the show. So the cast members have to get around this by putting the question in their answer. The end result becomes, the sort of girls I go for are... This isn't just reserved for your time on the show. You'll have to do this during your screen test. So if you're not prepared for it, it'll really trip you up. The questions you can expect will just be expansions of what you've already seen on the application form. What's your dating history? How would your friends describe you? What are your interests? What do you look for in a partner? Etc, etc. If you prep good answers for the application form and remember your key points, you'll be fine in the screen test. Instead of looking into the camera, this screen test will be conducted with you talking to an exec just off camera. This is much easier as you have a person to fix your eyes on and get a reaction out of. Remember to use your hands to illustrate points, avoid looking stale, smile and laugh wherever you can, and speak clearly. There's no longer a 1 minute time limit on the discussion here, but I would recommend keeping your answers short and snappy. Your screen test will be edited into 2 or 3 minutes of footage at most and given to the producers in London to watch. So taking up valuable time by telling in minute detail exactly what your gym routine consists of is probably not a good idea. Here we reach a really key point about reality TV in general, which is that the producers and the audience get limited exposure to the cast, meaning that they need to be able to make inferences about your character beyond what they see of you. They need to be able to predict how they can fill in the gaps about parts of your personality that they haven't seen. This doesn't mean that you need to be predictable and one-dimensional, but you do need to speak clearly and have well-defined views. If I ask, what kind of guys do you like? And you spend 2 minutes saying, well, not really, like, kind of a bit sort of tall, like not too tall, like, but, a bit sort of tall, kind of. This message and presentation does not come across well on air. A good way to help fill out your character and keep your answers short and sweet is to use cliches. Like it or not, Love Island is quite a cheesy show at times, and that means that cheesy answers fit right in. Remember about reducing the distance in the producer's minds. If you get asked what happens if someone gets in your face and you laugh and say, I'm a lover, not a fighter, the audience gets a really polished and well-rounded answer. Some of the things that I said in my VTs, which led the producers to believe I'd be creating lots of content, were things like saying that lots of friends confide in me, and I really like being an ear to lean on, but also I can't keep my mouth shut sometimes, and I love gossiping. This isn't really very true, but it's difficult to disprove, and it immediately makes you think, fantastic, there's bags of storylines coming out of this guy who can't keep his fucking mouth shut. Content. Saying that I normally play it cool with girls and I'm not bothered most of the time, but when I fall hard and I can become quite defensive and jealous. Content. I always say I don't get involved in drama, but then I just can't help myself from stirring the pot when it kicks off. Content. You get the idea. The final stage is the London screen test. You've made it to the big time now. There will be less than 100 to 200 people out of nearly 100,000 here, so it's time to get your game face on. ITV will ship you to London, probably in late April. You'll meet the exec producers in ITV's offices and do an extended screen test with them. It'll involve digging down into more of the details about personal storylines you've brought up so far. Here, they're going to be looking to see that you're not a one-dimensional character and that there's more to learn about you than can be discovered in a couple of minutes on tape. You need some more funny or embarrassing stories ready to go, but there's nothing wrong with going back over what you've already said and adding elements. Answers here obviously can afford to be a little bit longer and more descriptive too. That same day, you'll likely be sent to Harley Street for a psychometric evaluation to check if you have any mental health issues, which might become agitated by being on the show. You'll also be given a medical examination, including the most comprehensive STI check you've ever seen, and some booster shots for things like tetanus if yours have lapsed. It's a very bizarre but oddly quite nice experience. Then it's just a waiting game to receive the call. During this time, the execs may FaceTime you and chase up some more questions about you that they want more info on. This is also the stage where ITV will be running their very thorough background checks. So if you've got that sex tape lurking around, it may be surfacing soon. And that's about it. If you get the fated call from the execs, then congratulations. Welcome to Love Island. You're in the villa. Please pass go. Please collect 1 million followers, loads of condoms, and a Superdrug sponsorship on the way past. If you have any more questions about the process, please throw them in the comments below. And if you've learned anything or enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. There is enough content to fill the Love Island pool coming out over the next few months, so press subscribe. It would make me very happy indeed. If you want to hear about what life is really like in the Love Island villa, then press here and watch our podcast episode, which explains all of the secrets from behind the scenes.
Yeah.